So today, to start off, before I get into the lecture, gonna have quite a beefy little chat. Today is not so much a rant; it's supposed to be structured, instructional component of the video, and you're probably gonna find this on YouTube. And if you do, you found it because you're in a state of mind where it should be helpful for you. Um, Now, I was gonna do a rant about how repeating affirmations a million times is not necessarily going to get you your manifestation, but I say that is like, well, that's just kind of a not exactly productive opinion. And for someone who is using that as a technique and has already had some initial success with it, that could plant a seed of doubt in their mind. And I don't want to, be involved in that. I don't want to do that. And, what do people want? Why are you watching this video? You want your manifestation. So do I. So we're here to discuss how to get these things. And now when it comes to, because whatever your assumption about technique is going to manifest out too. So if you assume that doing a million affirmations works, it will work for you. If you truly assume that that's true, it will. If you really believe that you don't have to believe, then you don't have to believe. That's kind of one of the paradox about you can make your own rules. And of course, all that works because you are God and God the Father. Not God of your reality, not God of this 50 square feet of space. God the Father, who created everything that has ever existed and exists now and will ever exist. That's your true self. You just don't remember that. You think you're a human with your name, your specific history, but that is not true. That's not who you actually are. Okay, so we're gonna get into this heuristic. I'll pop up the graphic for it in a bit. And heuristic is just a method. Okay, so it's not a technique. It's a way to see if what you're doing is actually going to work, if you're applying the law properly or not. And this is something you can use at any stage of manifesting something. The shortest version of it is if I ask you right now, do you have what you want? What is your immediate mental response? Now that question should be conditioned to the desire. So if your desire is for money, if I ask you, are you rich? Your immediate mental reply to that question is your dominant state. And if you want to be rich and your current answer is, well, no, like I'm 2 months behind on rent, or I'm still in a ton of debt, but I'm manifesting to be rich, then you're not in the state. You didn't really properly capture it. If your immediate reply is, yeah, I have all the money I'll ever need. Really, truly, if that's really what your mind immediately thinks, then yes, you have captured the state. When it comes to a relationship, it's someone casual, imagine it's not me. Imagine it's someone you just met. Like, oh, you in a relationship? What does your mind immediately think? Do you think, well, I like this guy, but I'm not sure if he likes me, and we're kind of dating, but not really? Or if you think, well, they won't take my calls, I haven't seen them in 6 months, and I'm trying to manifest getting them back. Or does your mind say, yeah, I'm married? Even if you have zero evidence, even if the person hasn't talked to you in 2 years, if your mind immediately says, yes, I'm married, then you know the state you're in, okay? So that's the simplest form of this heuristic when it comes to job. What do you do for work? Very common question. What answer does your mind prepare? In that, when I ask you, what do you do for work? What does your mind say? Does it say, oh, well, I haven't had a job in 3 months, or haven't had a job since COVID, or well, I work as an accountant, but I really want to be in mustard seed distribution, or if it says like, yeah, well, I'm in the industry I want to be in. Let's say I work in the art history department at a university, but I really want to be a tenured professor. Well, if your mind is saying that and you really want to be a tenured professor, you have to mentally step into when someone asks you, what do you do? I'm a tenured professor in art history, even though you're right now only an adjunct. Your mind's response tells you your state and if you've assumed it or not. So let's look at the more detailed heuristic. Let me just pull it up, and I'm calling this, though it's not stated on there, "Get your breakthrough," because what a bunch of clickbait bullshit. But hey, if I did include that in the title or something, it got you here. Let me adjust the opacity a little bit so that the text is a little more readable on screen. Okay. All right, now this is really geared for intermediate manifestors. Let me just adjust the color again. I'm going to make it a little bit more gray and a little darker. All right, that's probably a lot better. All right, this is more for intermediate level manifestors, people who have been conscious about what they're doing for long enough to have several major manifestations. Like let's be real here. We do mentally organize things based on how desirable they are to us as big or small, and so this is geared towards people who have had several major big manifestations, innumerable, medium-sized and small manifestations every day. It could also be geared towards someone who's had like the one big thing, and they've started to notice a bunch of medium and little things. Okay, so it's not necessarily a question of time. It's more a matter of confidence and faith in the law. So if you say, I have absolute faith in the law, I just don't know why these certain things aren't here yet. Perfect. This is the video for you. If you say, I know the law works, but I'm not 100%, this is also probably the video for you. If you just found, there's some shades of gradients between that and the next person I'm going to describe. But if you just found Neville, you don't know if the law works, you're really not sure about it. You've tested, you've had some results, but you don't really know. Even if that's been you for a couple years now, this is not the video for you. You need to manifest faith first. And instead of linking a video, I will just tell you right now, use this method I'm going to describe and apply it towards faith. So if you have a technique that you know reliably works for you, use it towards manifesting total faith and confidence in the law and faith in the law and confidence in yourself. I did that. I did that as one of my first manifestations. I imagined a conversation with a friend. The unfolding was not what I expected, but it played out over the course of about 3 to 5 months. And when it finally did manifest, the scene was not exactly what I imagined, but it was in the place I imagined it. And I actually felt it with a greater intensity when I told him I have total faith in the law than I did in the imaginal act that I had done months prior. And so if that's how you manifest using scenes, use the exact thing I just told you. If whatever other way you use to manifest, use it to manifest faith, and then come back and see and check on your other things. But that's the heuristic in short. So it is helpful if you already have lists where you've documented your desires and their manifestation and possibly what you've done in that interval. So I have a bunch of William Blake journals. I have 3 of them full, where I keep, there's a poetry of William Blake used as the lines, and I keep them full of lists of my desires, and then I mark them off when they manifest, and I put the date. So I put the date of the desire, and then I put the date of manifestation usually. And the coolest shift that has, and I recommend everybody does this, everybody. The coolest thing that has happened is that I went from doing desire lists all the time, and then noticing that basically everything took, for the most part, everything took a while. A few things would happen fairly quickly in 1 or 2 weeks, but a lot of things were taking months. Now I don't even get to write them down. I have to go back after the thing has manifested and log, like, oh, well, this manifested same day, this manifested in 20 minutes, this manifested this week when I imagined it on Monday, and I didn't even bother putting it on a list. So that shift has been really cool to notice. But so if you don't have these lists already, like you haven't been doing this as a journal, this is a suggestion I got from Joseph Ally, but it's also something I was doing before I knew about manifesting, just as like goal planning. But I've always made lists, but not this specific to conscious manifesting. But if you don't have this already, that's okay. You can make these lists. So first, you want to go through, if you have these books, go through your prior manifestations, or right now, make a list of the top 10 to 20 things you've manifested recently. Because I do think the more recent, because your assumptions about how you manifest have changed. So you do want to look at what the recent ones are, so you have a better idea of what assumptions about manifesting are at play for you now. But look through all of those, and then as you look through them, remember, and if I highly recommend too that you also write notes of how you did each one. So if for one you can remember you had a specific thought and a brief visual about it and it manifested that day, log that, write that down so you know that. If another one you affirmed for like 2 months on and off casually, write that down. You can also include some other things you want information about, like did you know when the thing was going to manifest? Did you have any indicators that the thing was going to manifest prior to its manifestation? But the idea is that you're extracting from this primarily how you manifest. And there's going to be different ways, but what are the different ways you use your mind and see it express on the screen of space? And you can also look at what is the way I do that's not only most effective in terms of its closeness to what you originally thought, and also like which is most rapid. So overall, which is the best ways that you're already using that are already happening for you. Okay, so once you have all that information, this is going to take some time. So you may not be able to do all this, just in an afternoon in one sit down, but, make this like your exercise throughout the week, and then make this part of your just conscious way of living, where whenever there's something big you don't have yet, use this heuristic on it. So make a list of I'm sure you already have your desire list, your big desires, right? So just pull that list up, okay? If you haven't bothered making that list yet, come on, right now, what are the big things you want that you think haven't manifested yet? And additionally, especially because Neville so encourages that this is the way to really awaken Christ, your imagination within you, 5 or more if you want, friends or family members, and their primary desire. Okay, include that list as well. So your big desires and some of your friends and family and their big desires. Okay. Now we're going to do a comparison. Go by each one and look at it, and seriously, the only person you're going to rob if you're lying here is you. Now you can also revise and adjust mentally how you feel about these things, but look at each one and say, have I really claimed that in mind? Have I used one of these techniques I know works on this? So if you really want a certain body expression, you want a certain ideal weight, a certain appearance to the way you look, and something that hasn't manifested out yet, look at it and say, well, I know I'm very much a visualizer, but I've really struggled visualizing like how I would see myself in the mirror with this certain appearance change or at this certain weight. So admit to yourself, well, this is a stumbling block here. I know this is the main way I manifest everything I want is visualization. So I really have to take the time and commit to visualize myself in this ideal appearance. And if there's other supplementary ways, other techniques you could use instead that would also work, well, ask yourself, well, did I apply any of those? So if you haven't done it, if you know imaginal conversations without any visual component, just imagining a person, hearing their voice and talking to them, works for you pretty reliably, almost all the time or all the time. And you haven't even bothered imagining telling a friend that that you look that certain way, or them remarking on your appearance. If you haven't done that yet, now is the time to do that. So you want to look at each thing, and say, have I really applied what I know currently to be my best technique, my most effective way of thinking, because all mind is imagination. All your thoughts are imaginal. Everything is an imaginal activity, right? Have you applied your best thought, your best focus to this desire? Because if it hasn't expressed yet, it doesn't mean you haven't done that, but sometimes it means you haven't done that. Sometimes it means you really haven't put your full heart into it. You have not felt into that state at all. And you could have already said a million affirmations about it, but if you look and you realize, like, gee, most of the things I manifest I'm not affirming about, well, you got to admit, look, I'm not putting my best foot forward on this. I'm not really applying my divine gift in the best possible way based on my current skill set. So be honest with yourself. Okay, now if you look at something and you're like, everything I know that works for me, I have already done for this thing, and I've done them millions of times. I've met every single assumption that Neville ever said or some other coach ever said. I've done it all. I've done it all. I know this thing is guaranteed for me. I know this is what I will inevitably experience. However, I'm still upset that it isn't here, and I still keep looking for it. I still keep waiting for it. I'm still anxious about when it's going to come. I still feel lack that it's not here yet. This is where you have got to, like, you really have to physically set yourself down, and accept and know and believe that it is already done. This is a movement in mind that should have naturally happened during one of your imaginal acts already. However, you keep interrupting it. So every time, it's not that these things block your manifestations, because I remember my recent conversation with Daphne, she said, well, you should look at, is there something alive in you that is blocking it? I don't believe that. You're not going to block your manifestation. However, simply focusing on it not being here is enough to sort of tamper with its development and delay it. Like, there's no deeper thing blocking it necessarily, other than your simple focus on it's not here. So that's what we have to adjust. Every time that you go, it's not here, when is it going to be here? You're not ripping up the seed, but you're fiddling with the soil in a non-productive way. And depending on the intensity with which you're doing it, you might just be one of those people who's like stamping the ground, stamping the ground of it, like, where is it? That's not going to make it grow any faster. Your thoughts, your predominant thoughts about this thing should be watering it, should be acknowledging that it's not, just dirt with nothing visible. You should look at it and see the full blossomed tree and feel the joy of accomplishment, that you grew that you created that you achieved that. If that's lacking, when you think about it immediately and you just see the seemingly barren land instead of the fruit-bearing tree, if that's what's going on in your mind, I think it's just a pattern of thoughts that are creating this mirage for you. And in your moments of imaginal acts, you've seen that tree. And you really just need to redirect your focus towards that and the feeling towards that. It may be that when you imagined for it, you did imagine at a deep intensity, so it will occur. However, your thoughts throughout the day are just so contrary that you keep forgetting that. You're just focused too much on it not being here, as opposed to being focused on it being here. And for some things, that's pretty difficult, because it requires a major adjustment of all your thoughts. But the main adjustment is, when you think about the thing, are you feeling that you don't have it or you do have it? If you're feeling that I don't have it and that sucks, you still need to keep imagining. You still need to adjust your state. If you feel like I have it, but where is it? That is a complex state, and that is one that I am finding myself in quite a few things. And in terms of, if I look at all the things I have manifested out, I cannot possibly think about them. Where is it? What do you mean, where is it? Like the sofa that I wanted for years, that before I knew about conscious manifesting, I still apply the same techniques that I know work for me in order to get it, and to get pretty close to the exact sofa I want. I'm not worried about where this sofa is. It's right there. And we have to be able to do that with these things that we really, really want. Hey, Cyber King, how's it going? Yeah, well, so you might have just tuned in as I'm getting towards the end of this explanation, but I'm trying to give a heuristic for when you have these things that you really want, where you feel like you've claimed it, but where is it? The best advice I could give myself right now is that, look, you know you've done enough. You know that this thing is yours. It is time to really, truly accept and believe that it is going to come. And it's time to be happy about that, not to keep thinking there's more that needs to be done. If you really, truly know I did what was asked of me, I have claimed it, it is mine, this is inevitable, it's time to be happy about that and to really enjoy that that is true. It's one of these things where it's a movement in mind that is very personal. And you only find yourself in this conundrum because it's something that's going to be a part of your daily life, and so you just keep noticing the lack. But in those cases, you have to train yourself that when you start to notice the lack, to instead notice the presence, even though the presence may not be in this 3D world, because it's all your projection anyway. So let's say it is for money. The most useful one for money is whenever you start to think you can't afford something, buy it in mind. Mentally, buy the thing. So if you are looking at stuff online and you're like, oh man, I'd really like I looked today, I made some imaginary purchases today of really high-end knives. I was watching a stream where a guy was making jokes about selling knives, and I started, because I was like, I don't really have good knives, so I started looking at just sites where they sell knives, and I found these really high-end like sushi knives, like really nice steel, amazing knives. I bought them in mind. So I picked out the ones I wanted, and I mentally paid for them. I mentally bought them. I have used this effectively for like a lot of donation campaigns. When people are raising money for things, I will mentally give a donation myself, or mentally see other people make donations, and then they make equivalent or larger donations, usually pretty shortly after. It's really cool. So start doing that with money. Now, when it comes to a relationship, if you really want daily contact with someone, daily presence with them, in the moments where you feel like they're not there, you wish they would call you, blah, 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 make that movement in mind. So if you want them to text you right then, mentally receive that text from them. If they would be living with you, if they would come home at that time, this is the time when they come home. Take a few moments to imagine what it is like when they come home at that time of the day. If this is a bodily condition, if you're like, this is what I'm starting to try to do when it comes to body. So if you're out taking a walk and you want the walk to be more pleasurable, but you're currently experiencing a lot of pain, that is the time it really does work to take your mind and think like, oh, I remember when this used to be a pain in the ass, and now it is so easy, it's so enjoyable, I can enjoy my walks again, it's really great. I've been doing that, it has been helping me get back on track with my walks, which I used to enjoy and stopped enjoying. So these are like little subtle moments where you have to catch your mind and redirect it. But this general, larger, bigger picture movement of acceptance is one that really has to occur. Because until it occurs, until you really feel there's nothing more I need to do, there's no more assumptions I need to rewrite, there's no blocks I need to delete, there's nothing blocking what I want, there's no self-concept change I need to make. Right now, sit down, believe this, accept this within yourself. Right now, I am totally perfect. I am totally ready to experience this desire. This is who I am now. This is what is normal for me. This is what is typical for me. There's no more adjustments I need to make. There's no more imagining I need to do. This is who I am now. It really just truly accept that for yourself. Now, as a little bonus activity, I want to include, so when you're looking over your list of the ways that are effective for you to manifest, you're going to come across some techniques and rules. Also, look at your rules that are still in operation for you right now that kind of suck. So I know one that a lot of people get contaminated with is that you have to let it go. And this might be something I talked to Daphne about because I believe she's been able to adjust this for herself. But like when they say let it go, they mean like you have to basically forget it, stop thinking about it, which really sucks as a rule because I mean there's very little that's better than receiving a desire while it's really hot, while it's something you really want, and receiving it like at the height of that desire. That's one of the most pleasurable experiences, and it's sad that people might take on that rule and then therefore limit their reality. But so if you find a rule like that, use a technique. You can even use the own technique you don't like on it to dissolve it. So if you find that you made a rule for you that you have to let it go in order for it to manifest, and you mostly do imaginal conversations with people, do an imaginal conversation where you tell your friend, oh, I don't have, like I used to have to let it go in order to get it, and now I don't have to do that anymore. I can still like actively desire the thing and end up getting it. Now, of course, because that let it go rule is still going to be in operation, you would have to let that conversation go. You would have to forget that conversation. However, letting it go is for you now, you would have to do that. But then from there on out, it would manifest. I use this to alter my thinking a couple times, and I want to do it again. I first used it, well, I used it to manifest faith, but I also around that same time used it to manifest, for the most part, like for 95% freedom from rumination. I had a very ruminative mind when I found Neville, and I just had thoughts that were very punishing and disturbing, and like just kind of tortured myself all the time. And I someone suggested to me to do that, to imagine that I don't do it anymore. And so I did that. Actually, she suggested it after I had done it, but I did the scene a little bit wrong, so I had to adjust it. But the scene simply was, I imagined telling my friend, I used to ruminate I think I even said ruminate in the imaginal act, but it's like, I used to ruminate all the time. It really sucked. But then all of a sudden in summer of, I think it was 2019 or 2020, poof, all those thoughts just disappeared. The alteration I needed to make was to add, and they haven't come back since. Because the first time I did the scene, I just said, oh, they just poof disappeared. So they poof disappeared, but then they came back a week later. When I said, and they just poof disappeared, and they haven't come back since. So that has stayed in place. And I think it was 2019, so it's stayed in place for 2 years now, going on 2 years now. And you can use that trick for any form of thought. There are a couple of forms of thought I want to still manifest alterations in. Mostly when it comes to revision, I want my revision to be a lot more effective and easy to do. But you can use this trick for any skill set in mind that you find you don't really like right now, that is a little bit punishing for you. And this applies for even things that Neville says are, this is the way you do it. You can still alter all those things. So any sort of thoughts about manifesting you've picked up from Neville, from contemporary teachers, from the old man way of thinking about the world, any of those can be altered, okay? Because the only law is a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So whatever you believe about manifesting is also going to manifest out. And this heuristic is designed to help you identify and discover what are the ways you're currently primarily having the most effective success. Now that is going to adjust. That is why I suggest it should be a lifelong heuristic, something you're looking at all the time, something you're adjusting as you go. Like one recent adjustment that I have made, and it hasn't fully manifested out yet, is so obviously the concept is that you have to totally not experience desire anymore in order to have the manifestation. Well, I don't like that. And I also don't like that you have to have a scene in order for it to move in consciousness. I don't like that either, because I know Neville talks about quick and easy, immediate assumptions. A second desire comes upon you, assume you have it, and that is what I want to move towards and move in. And so the adjustment I made is that I decided, and I did scenes about it, and I just kind of affirmed it a bit. I decided I can say I want X and get it. Right now, that's about, it's not over 90% yet, but it is about like 80%. And it has started happening. There is still like an arrangement of mine where if it's a bigger thing, it doesn't necessarily work. But small things, it started working like pretty universally. The thing is, I have to be careful because if I say, well, I want, like, let's say, I really genuinely have to want the thing too, is kind of like a sub rule that I included in this idea, because I have a general belief and assumption that, for the most part, my unfoldings are going to be pleasant, and I'm not going to experience a lot of unwanted stuff. But so if I say I want birthday cake, and I've also decided I could specify times, and the time is less effective right now than just the I want. But let's say I want birthday cake this afternoon, and that's it. I don't have to include a scene. I don't have to affirm about it. I don't have to drop my desire for cake. I don't have to become the person who's eating cake. Like, I can just say that, and I don't even have to visualize or anything, and get the thing. And those have started happening for me. Now, that is an adjustment in mind that took me a long time, and it's still something I'm working on, just because even once you have faith in the law, you have to start pulling apart all these smaller assumptions that you've taken on and created about how you manifest. And so I'm hoping that this heuristic that I've given here is one that will help you pull apart some of those things, and be more effective in your imaginal activity and expression. You also might want to look at, when it comes to these big desires, did you make rules about it? So did you make rules about when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen? Like, I know it's very trite advice to let go of the how, but once you accept that you already have it, you don't care about the how, mostly. You're still going to have a desire to not have a how that sucks, right? Like, you're still going to have a strong desire to not have a turbulent unfolding like Neville did when it came to marrying his second wife. Like, you're going to want a mostly good and drama-free unfolding. That is also an assumption you can plant using your preferred techniques. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick little break, and then we're going to come back and do the lecture for today. And the lecture for today is You Can Never Outgrow I Am. I was going to do one that was primarily concerned about time of manifestation. However, I didn't like it because it was a little bit so it did give the same message I'm giving here, which is you need to accept that it's done. But there was another message in it that I didn't like, and you won't like either, which is sometimes you have to wait. Sometimes you have to wait. And while you're waiting, you just reassure yourself, but also accept and really feel and know to be true and enjoy the fact that it's already done. And being able to do that when you have no evidence whatsoever is something that takes mastery, takes time. And no amount of techniques are going to get you there. It really is about experience. It really is about being able to do this reliably with your mind towards basically anything, and to make these adjustments to get yourself there. All right, let's take a little break. I'll be right back. If I have any additional little comment before we get into the lecture, I'll include that. But I just need a break for some